fabulous listeners. Thanks for tuning in to Old Bodies Outside. This is your host, Brian Peterson. This episode's guest is Jane Barlow, who is the CEO of Barlow Herbal Specialties, which is a company that advocates for a holistic approach to health. Their goal is to support people in caring for their family's everyday health challenges in a natural way. Jane is a herbalist and loves everything natural, holistic, wellness, fitness, and nutrition oriented. She believes it is our right as humans to be vibrantly healthy, that if given the right tools, our body knows how to heal, and that each of us is responsible for ourselves and the love, joy, and spiritual and physical health we experience. For more information, go to www.barlowherbal.com. Jane, it's a pleasure to have you on Old Bodies Outside.
Thanks, Brian. It's so awesome to be here.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, I wanted to start this off with saying thank you. You sent me a wonderful care package, and I did want to start this off with discussing it. So first off, you sent me kind of three things here. And the first one was your book, which I want to hear about more later because there's exciting news about that. But it's titled Be Your Own Shaman, a field guide to utilize 94 of the world's most healing plants. You left a wonderful, nice note in there. And that was kind of exciting to see it addressed to me. To Brian, happy to connect with a fellow outdoor lover. I truly hope you enjoy learning about plant medicine. Much love, Jane. So that was really kind of you. And yes, I am an outdoor lover and I run a podcast called Old Bodies Outside. And I know that, and this is what I want to talk about a little bit later, that you mentioned on our email correspondence that your book got picked up by a major publisher. So we can talk about that later. And I also wanted to discuss a couple more items that you put in that care package. That was so kind that you did that. So we got some of your products here. First one is the Glowing Vitality. And I've been putting that on around my eyes after I get out of the shower in the morning or whenever I shower. We got some throat spray right here. We got some immunity boost, and we got some LDM 100, which, I had to look up what this was. And I learned about wildcrafted lomatium, but it was very easy to look up because you also sent me a book that has all of the information of your products. And so between this book, your hardbound book here of Be Your Own Shaman, I was able to learn about lomatium. So that was so wonderful. That came about probably in the mail for me around July 2nd or July 3rd. So, and my parents, I remember they were visiting here, and my mom, she loves everything natural. So she was really excited to see that care package. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think it's sometimes like I get so excited to share what I do. And especially when I connect with somebody who's so like-minded, it's like, the things that I get to do change the game for people. And I sent you some of my favorite stuff that was just like, I was raised on herbal medicine. My dad was a botanist. I raised my kids and now my grandkids. And it's such a beautiful thing to be able to use plant medicine and share it. So, and you can't really share in these times without education. I mean, it can't just be, trust me, take this. And that's why that little booklet full of information is so important, because I'm not just going to, suggest somebody take something if I don't educate them about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, the education component is really, really important. And I appreciate that. As I mentioned, I don't know, maybe I'm one of the few, but I had not heard of lomatium. And I actually had to look up how to pronounce it too.
You did good. I mean, you should see, we hear lomatium, we hear all kinds of stuff. But you pronounced it good. It's not a very well-known plant because it only grows in the wild, and it only grows in the Pacific Northwest of the U.S. So you can't cultivate it. It's never been successfully cultivated. And it's a Native American plant that is, there's a whole beautiful history behind it that, and in my opinion, it's one of the most powerful antimicrobials on the planet. So antiviral, antifungal, anti-candida, antibacterial. So it's one of those plants that's just a powerhouse, but it only grows in one part of the world and you can't cultivate it. So it's a special plant. But here's the thing, and I don't know if this is a good time to jump into this, but there's also a plant that has similar properties that grows in Africa. It's called Cryptolepis. So just like crypto, like a cryptocurrency, but Cryptolepis, Lepis. and it has powerful antimicrobial properties. And it's also a root, like lomatium, the part of the plant you use is the root. So there are plants that grow in different regions around the world because they're really designed, I believe, by God to put in. Um, this is how humans have been taking care of themselves for centuries, like
Right.
since the beginning of time. So yeah, plant medicine is so fun. It's so fun.
Yeah. Well, so let's hear about how you got started with all of this. I think, it started with your dad from the research I did, but let's hear your dad's story and how he started Barlow Herbal.
Yeah, so my dad grew up in a family of 7 kids. There were 5 boys and 2 girls. And my grandpa, his dad, owned a plumbing and electrical business in Idaho. And all of my dad's siblings, when they grew up, they all went into the family business except for my dad. And he joined the Navy. He went to college. He was in the Navy during the right after the Korean War, and then he went into college to study botany and study plant medicine. And he just was one of those people that you could not go somewhere without him seeing a plant by the side of the road, or you know, we were little kids, we were driving somewhere, and he would pull over and help it. He would identify a plant and say, oh, this plant is this, it's got this botanical name, this is a Latin name, this is the part of the plant you use, this is how you prepare it, this is how you make a poultice or a tincture. And it was like constant learning about plants. That just is what made him tick. So he started a company when I was a teenager. He developed some really beautiful tinctures. Tinctures are liquid extracts of plants, and this was just the way we were raised. So he passed away 25 years ago, and I restarted his company about 4 years after he passed away. Surprisingly, I never dreamed it would be me. I have 8 sisters and 5 brothers. There's 14 of us, and I am just I I can't believe how blessed I am to do this. And all of my siblings are grateful too, because now I provide all of these formulas um, for them to use what we were used to. But yeah, my dad was just a real pioneer in plant medicine.
Yeah. So what were some of your early experiences with your father with maybe going out and working with some of these wild crafted herbs?
Well, one of the biggest things I think that uh, he really he had such a respect for the land and how to wildcraft sustainably. You don't ever go somewhere and you clean out a whole area, especially with a plant where, the lomatium, like we were talking about, part of the plant you use is the root. So when you take out the root, you don't go and clear out a whole hillside. What you do is you can tell on the top of the ground how big the root is. If you know how to properly identify the stalks that are dried, you can see basically how old that is. So you're gonna leave certain plants because they're not very old, and you're also gonna, when you pull the root out, you take the seeds and you put them in the hole and you cover it up as you
Mm.
go. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Is it's like um, there's got to be a respect for the land, and there's such an appreciation when you actually learn how to wildcraft plants that you take into your home. Even something like dandelions. I don't think people should use the dandelions from their grass, from their yard, because people spray things and there's pesticides, and you really have to be careful where you go. And this is just another thing. It's like, where did these plants come from? How do you sustainably harvest them? And then how do you prepare them? Because we had pots of stuff sitting around. We had huge gardens. We had, you know, we always had healers in the house. There were chiropractors that were my dad's friends. We had acupuncturists and reflexologists and iridologists, people who could read the irises of your eyes. And
Wow.
this was just a normal part of growing up. And for the most part, most of us just kind of were like, we got to be adults and we moved out, and we're like, okay, this is too much hippie stuff. We need to go find our own modern path. And eventually all of us came back. So it was just a wonderful, quirky, amazing childhood for every one of us when you have parents like that.
Yeah, well, and you know, you said everyone's come back. It does seem like it is a family-run business, and I want to touch on that. And I also want to touch on. It seems like you have really focused your efforts on being as natural as possible with what you're extracting, and you kind of mentioned that in your explanation.
Yeah, I think that if, as I've been in this business, because my first career was in fitness, the first 20 years since, I fell in love with fitness when I was in high school. I started teaching group exercise classes when I was 18. And
Wow.
like I was telling you before we started recording, I ended up teaching for a little more than 40 years. But um, basically, I've been going about 21 years on my own, full on. This is what I do. My dad's line of formulas, and now I've developed quite a line of. In fact, all of the formulas that you have, except for the LDM 100, those are all my formulations because I've really gotten this deep understanding of not just how to source the raw materials, but what makes a supplement really, really good. And I'm not going to put anything out to humanity that I wouldn't personally take myself or give to my kids or let my grandchildren use
Yeah.
to help them heal.
Yeah.
So I think that there's this learning curve for most people on where do you source the ingredients? Are they organic or are they wild crafted? And sometimes wild crafted is not going to mean it's organic, and you can't put an organic label on a plant that's wild crafted. Now you can test it. You can test to make sure that it is the correct species. We have that done because we actually go out every fall as a family still, and we wildcraft the lomatium for the products that we make. So this is something we do with a lot of love, a lot of intention. In fact, my youngest son, who's 40, he is so cute up on the hill. He will literally dig a root out, and I've seen him do this. It's so cool. He'll hold this root, and he'll be like, who are you going to go out into the world and heal? And there's just so much intention and true love in everything that we do. But I think people, we know we need to read ingredient labels, but the thing is like, you really need to understand when you have like if you were to look at the lomatium, the LDM bottle that you have, it's made with lomatium dissectum. That's the botanical name. And then it's extracted in organic cane alcohol. That is it. Those are the only two ingredients.
Nice.
There's no preservatives, there's no fillers, and this is free. This is true with all of our stuff. And there are companies out there who do this. I think you just have to do your due diligence. I would suggest not ever buying a supplement from a big box store. I just wouldn't. And yeah, I
Yeah.
hope that was kind of a roundabout way of answering your question.
Well, no, I think you put it a great way though, that with all your products, you are looking to give this to friends, to family, and the love behind it is there. This is not just something that
Yeah.
you're trying to get out into the world and make a buck off of. You're trying to,
No.
do this with love. You're trying to support your family, your friends, and whatnot. And so everything is as natural as possible. Whereas something that that is interesting with the supplement industry, I don't know how well that's regulated in terms of like supplements in a box that you mentioned, and there may not be as much care, there may not be as much love, and I think that that's something for that people don't even think about actually when they go and buy supplements. I know that in my household
Yeah.
growing up, my parents were big fans of just taking all kinds of vitamins from the grocery store and like, okay, multivitamin, okay, vitamin C, like I'm just going to take it, but like never read anything past that. It was just like, well, it's a vitamin, it's good for you.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. In fact, here's a really good tip for people if you're just really wanting to pay attention to the supplements that you buy for yourself and your family. Every supplement company, they have what's called a COA, which is a certificate of analysis. And like every single batch of every single product that we do. So we don't just do this once. This is on every single batch of everything we do. We can literally send you a certificate of analysis. And this tells you the correct species. This tells you if it's got any heavy metals, any mold, or anything that could have any kind of harm. And in fact, if there's anything that's not right with a raw ingredient that we source for any of our products, we don't take it. We send it back. We do literally testing on every single herb that comes in to the facility. And then after the products are made, they get tested again. And I think, what you said about the whole love thing, the energy of love has a frequency that actually helps heal you. And you know, to me, those are really research the company where you buy things. And there are a lot of good companies out there, but people need to do their due diligence.
Yeah. They do.
Yeah.
They do need to do their due diligence to find that love, and love, with that love behind creating the product, means quality. And that quality
Yeah.
is so important. I mean, from everything that we buy,
Yeah.
everything, it could be clothes. What's the quality behind those clothes? Will those clothes last for, I don't know, 1,000 times to the dryer or something like that? What's the quality behind the product? And it sounds like with Barlow, Herbal Specialties, you definitely got that down with, the love and whatnot. So that's fantastic. Now I want to ask a question about earlier that you mentioned. I think I tracked the difference, but I thought that maybe it'd be good for you to kind of just explain the difference between organic and wild crafted.
Yeah. So organic is basically, it's grown like usually planted in rows or planted in fields or whatever, and you basically grow it organically without pesticides, herbicides, and you grow it organically. If you do use something to keep the pests away, it's something that's organic. So organic is in a controlled environment, which actually can be, I would prefer organic over conventional grown. So organic is good. But if you have something that's wild crafted, which that could be almost anything, many plants, like there's a plant called osha root, which is really good for your lungs, which is also only wild crafted because you can't cultivate that either. There's many plants that you can't cultivate. So there are herbalists and wild crafters that is their profession. That's what they do. And wild crafting just simply means you go out and you harvest a plant, whether it's the flowering tops, the roots, the leaves, the stems, the roots, or the whole plant, and you literally harvest it where it grows in its own environment. That's what wild crafting is. Like when someone goes out and forages for mushrooms, they are foraging for mushrooms where they grow. Like if you go look at turkey tail mushrooms, the way they grow on a tree, and you know how to identify that, you're foraging for mushrooms, which is exactly like wild crafting different plants and different herbs. So organic means you're basically growing them like a farmer does in a hot house, out in a field somewhere where there's a controlled environment, and you're making sure that it's grown without pesticides and without herbicides.
Nice, nice. Okay,
Yeah.
so Jane, I want to return to some of these products that you gave me,
Okay.
and I wanted to honestly, I want to get started with them. I have not done that. I got started with one of them, and I mentioned, the
Yeah.
glowing vitality. That one's, pretty straightforward. Okay, so let's start with the throat spray, and I think that first off, what you sent me seemed like kind of like a starter package in a way. Is that correct?
Yeah, in a way.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a
So with
lot of ways to start, but those are some of the best ways. Those are like, there's nothing dramatic that's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. Do you want to
Yeah.
address that? So if there is a listener out there, it's like, how do I get started? Why don't we address that now before we kind of jump into how to use these?
Yeah. I mean, if someone were to look us up, or has heard, we've been around for a really long time, and I'm out there spreading information. I've been on a few documentaries. I've been in, to me, it is about education. So if someone's, first, so like, let's take the lomatium, for example. This is where we spend most of our time, and it's probably what we're best known for. But when someone starts using lomatium for the first time, and you might have read this in that little booklet that I gave you, there's a possibility of a one-time detox rash, which is a full body detox rash that some people get when they use the plant lomatium for the first time. And this is where, to me, the education is so important, because if someone is not familiar with not only a detox, but what is a healing crisis? What happens when your body gets something that has the ability to help you heal, but you get a little bit worse before you get better? So that's even like what a fever is. A fever is your body's way of healing, heating up to heal you. And I'm not talking about let a fever rage out of control, but your body is literally heating up because you're burning out a virus or you're burning out an infection. And this is where we've kind of lost that healing nuance of how does this human biological vessel heal. So with Lomatium, some people will get this one-time detox rash, and it's detailed out in the catalog I gave you. And I spend a lot of time talking about this to educate people, because I don't want you to freak out. Like, you get this rash, it's full body for most people. It looks like measles. There can be fever. The itching is unbearable for some people, but we have a whole protocol on how to prevent the rash if you can, which is a good thing, and then how to get through the rash if you are one of those people that get it. So the things that I sent you, so the throat spray, it has some Lomatium in it, but it has about 14 herbs in it. And we've never had anybody get the rash from taking the throat spray. So this is good for healing and nourishing and supporting your throat health. In fact, we have, about 10 years ago, we had a singer on Broadway discover our throat spray. And now there's a whole cast on one of the Broadway musicals that uses our throat spray because it helps keep their vocal cords nourished and strong and performing for them. So, but it's also good for if you have, how sometimes you get a cough and you just can't stop coughing. And it's just packed full of all these lovely herbs. And there's a little bit of honey in it, and there's 3 essential oils in it, and it's in a vegetable glycerin base, and it tastes really good. And it's great for little kids. And it's, I hike with it and a little bottle of Lomatium. And I also never travel without it because you never know what you're going to pick up when you're up in the sky. So,
I was actually thinking. Yeah, I was actually thinking about the hiking aspects. I have a buddy who, when he gets up to kind of higher elevations, maybe above 11,000 feet, say he's in Colorado, hike up a 14 or something like that, he'll get a dry throat pretty quick. He'll start coughing, and the air is drier. It's a dry climate. And so with the throat spray, is this something that you recommend that you take as a reactive product? Like you're starting to feel your throat dry, or do you, maybe in the case of the Broadway, I mean, I guess probably could go either way. Like, in the case of the Broadway singers, like, you're going to take in advance of kind of working your vocal cords.
Yeah, you could do either way. Like the reason I hike with it is because sometimes I'll get to some high peaks. I haven't gotten as high as 11,000 feet, but I can feel my throat get dry, and a squirt or two, it's lovely. It really just kind of, it makes such a huge difference. So you can use it either way.
Okay. And is it something that you could take daily?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. And then the other one I sent you, the Immunity Boost.
Yep.
That was I formulated that about 15 years ago. And this was pure self-preservation because I was talking to so many people that had the Lomatium rash. And I needed to figure out a way of like, how can we help people get the same benefits from Lomatium and do our best to prevent the rash. Yeah. So when I first restarted my dad's company, the majority of my customers were practitioners because that's who my dad sold to, was mostly doctors, naturopaths, acupuncturists, chiropractors, natural doctors. And from all of their feedback, what they found is that if someone has a compromised liver, if they've spent, a lot of time, if they've drank a lot of alcohol, or they were drinkers, or they took a lot of prescription drugs over the years, their liver was just not super healthy. They were a lot more prone to getting this Lomatium rash. So I formulated this product, Immunity Boost, that has one of the main herbs is dandelion root, which supports and detoxes and nourishes the liver. Red root, which helps clear mucus out of your organs. And then there's also 25% Lomatium in there. And there's blue vervain, there's sarsaparilla. There's a really good blend of herbs. And we find that if you start with the Immunity Boost, you acclimate your body to the Lomatium, you support and detox the liver. And instead of about 10% of the people who get the rash, now it's down to only about 3%. Okay. Using Immunity Boost. So what I would suggest, if anybody is interested in using the plant Lomatium, which I've used it for cold, flu, UTIs, SIBO, you name it. Epstein, anything under the Epstein-Barr virus, like shingles, anything. It's a powerful antimicrobial, candida, whatever. And I would say get your body acclimated to it, and either get the rash and get it over with because it only happens once, or start using maybe immunity boost first and acclimate your body so that when you do need to hit it hard, there appears to be no organ toxicity with Lomatium. So that means you can literally increase the dosage until it does the job. So my best example of that is about, 20 years ago, I got a UTI. I've only ever had one. And I took of the tincture, which is a very concentrated form of Lomatium. I took 50 drops every hour for 12 hours, and It was gone the next day. Whoa. So you can safely increase the dose. So like if I ever get a bad cold, if I ever get the flu, I don't ever do anything but I use Lomatium. And
Okay. So the immunity boost, is that something so it's for daily support. It says add about 15 drops to water or herbal tea. What's your favorite way of ingesting it? Do you add it to some tea?
I've gotten to a point where I have a little shot glass. I put some water in it. I put my tincture in the little shot glass and I just drink it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So immunity boost, take that daily. Lomatium, the LDM 100, take that when something starts to arise that you need that extra boost.
You only need to go through the one bottle of immunity boost, and then set. Some people will come back to it because it's good for seasonal allergies, and they just love the support of all the other herbs in there. But yeah.
All right. Well, Jane, I think this is going to be great for me entering into the academic school year at Kansas State University.
It's going to change your life, Brian. I promise.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you sent this all to me. I'm planning on 100% using it. And now that I have my head wrapped around using the immunity boost, having done a little bit of reading prior and also hearing about your explanations of Lomatium. Another thing that I did read about Lomatium too was it was quite popular. Some of indigenous tribes around the Americas. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's a Native American plant. Like I said, it only grows in the Pacific Northwest. And during the 1918 flu epidemic, the Spanish flu, what happened, excuse me, is the United States assigned a contract physician to every area around the U.S. so they could keep track of stats and numbers and how many people were dying and how many people were getting sick and all of this. So there was a doctor in San Francisco. His name was Dr. E.T. Krebs. He was a medical doctor, and he was assigned a group that included 2 tribes of Native Americans that lived near Carson City, Nevada, and they were called the Washoe Indians. And while he was keeping track of all the stats, he discovered that these 2 tribes of Indians, a lot of them got sick, but not one person from either one of these tribes died. And he discovered that they were using the plant Lomatium, the root of the medicine, as a medicine during the epidemic. So after the pandemic was over, he took the Lomatium back to his practice in New York and started studying it and actually using it in his practice. And then his son, E.T. Krebs Jr., went on to become a medical doctor as well, took up the study of Lomatium, and then my dad met and worked with Dr. Krebs Jr. for about 30 years. But what happened is in 1944, when prescription antibiotics, penicillin was discovered, nobody wanted to use an old Indian remedy because it was starting to gain some traction. There was a beautiful article written up in the Journal of Bacteriology in 1942, I think. I have the copy of that article, but it was starting to gain a lot of popularity because it was such a powerful plant. But then prescription antibiotics came on the scene, and then it's like, oh, that's antiquated. Oh, isn't that cute? A little Indian remedies. So yeah, the Native Americans had a lot of deep wisdom with herbal medicine, including Lomatium.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Okay. Let's transfer over to hearing about the exciting news of your book. So your book, I'll just repeat the title of that: Be Your Own Shaman, a field guide to utilize 94 of the world's most healing plants. And this is something that, as you mentioned, was it during our recording or before our recording that you wrote this very recently, actually?
Yeah, yeah. So it actually just came out a couple months ago, and I self-published it. And basically, the quick history behind this is when I was in high school, my dad wrote a book called From the Shepherd's Purse, which was 48 plants, how to identify them. There was a full color picture, an illustration of the picture of the plant, and then all the ailments it was good for, what time of day to collect it, what parts of the plant do you use, what time of year, how do you make it into a poultice or a tincture or a salve, or so basically how to take these plants and use them and make them into things that you could use in your life. So he wrote this book more than 45 years ago, and it's been out of print ever since. So as I've been running my dad's formulas, doing this business, I have people ask me every week, at least sometimes more, you need to republish your dad's book. You need to republish your dad's book. And it just never felt right just to republish my dad's book. So last year, I sat down and I took my dad's original content. I added 46 more plants. I updated all the photographs, all the pictures, all of the content. Plant medicine doesn't really change the medicinal properties, but it needed to be updated and reformatted because it was a little bit antiquated. And I self-published it. It came out about 3 months ago, and I just sell it on my website, and I never really, so about 2 weeks ago, I found out that there's a publishing house in New York City called Skyhorse Publishing, and I'd sent them a manuscript because I have a friend who knows the owner of the publishing house, and I just, there was a connection there, and I didn't really think much of it, but they're gonna actually publish it for me, so it's gonna get wide distribution, which is, to me, my goal is to spread information that can help humans take back their own power. Like, I don't want to have to run to the doctor every time I have some little thing. I want to have the confidence to heal myself. So
Yeah, well, congrats on that. And you did a great job self-publishing it. It's a beautiful book. Like, the pictures are lovely inside. You have a picture for every plant. Like, I just opened it right now, opened up to aloe, and it's beautifully well done. It honestly, you can't tell that it was self-published because it's so beautifully well done.
Thank you. Yeah, it was here's what I think, Brian. The energies of the planet right now are so different and so high. And if anyone is a creator and they want to create something, right now is the easiest time to do that. Because for 4 years, I actually would get started on this book, and it seemed so overwhelming, and I would get some research going on it, and then I just couldn't ever get it going. But last year, once I just decided I'm going to just do this, it's hard to describe unless you do it. So anybody that's out there that's a creative, maybe they want to start a business, maybe they want to, whatever they want to do, if maybe they're a painter, maybe they're a writer, no matter what it is, it has never been easier than right now to be a creative human being and put your gifts out to the world. It's so true. So true.
Yeah, and I love the idea of everyone's got their gifts, and
Yes.
it's easier than ever to put your gifts out there. I love that you said that. I mean, I got to imagine it's so empowering too, and feels so good to be doing something that you love, being kind of leading your own path. Yes, it maybe comes with a little bit of risk, but gosh, it's got to be so empowering and so enchanting too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that when I was preparing, I was looking up some more information about you, and I found that you have a YouTube site, and it looks like you release about a video about once a week. Is that about correct?
Yeah, once a week, and sometimes two a week, but most of the time it's once a week. Yeah.
Okay.
There's been some censoring on YouTube, as you know. So I actually, it's been about more than a year and a half. I started just putting out a Sunday message of love. So every Sunday, I talk about forgiveness. Maybe I talk about unity. I talk about things that are happening in the world without really saying what's happening in the world. And the goal is to really give people a sense of hope and a realization that the future is going to be so amazing. We just need to keep our vibrations high. But yeah, I throw all that on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, yeah. And so on top of that, you got your Sunday hopes of love, which I think is fantastic, sending positivity out there. That is so important for the world, sending out good vibrations. What other type of information are you talking about and delivering? Maybe education about your products on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, well, I don't really talk about the products too much.
Okay.
And I usually typically even on podcasts, like us talking about the products at the beginning of this is surprisingly not something I typically do. I will talk about Lomatium and educate, but 5 years ago, I wrote a little book of healthy habits. Just because the older I get, what I found is people would say, well, what do you do to stay healthy? And what are your habits? And how are you not on any prescription medications? And so I put together a little book called Jane's Book of Healthy Habits, and there are 40 habits in there. And then what I did a couple of years ago is I took every habit and I filmed a video of me talking about that healthy habit. Like one is oral health. One is not eating artificial sweeteners. One is staying away from soda. One is an apple a day. I mean, exercise, whatever. So, just tips on being healthy. I'll do tips on, I'll give the health benefits of cayenne pepper, or I will share different things to just educate people about all the things I love. So it's kind of goes through a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And I think that all of that is really important for physical and mental health.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think that, we don't give ourselves enough credit for the brilliant human beings that we are, and we get caught in old belief systems. And if people only knew their own potential and power, the world would look very, very different.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I also wanted to kind of put a plug in for the podcast, All Bodies Outside. Like, it sounds like all the love you're sending out, the positive vibrations includes getting outside, enjoying nature, connecting with nature. And that was something that I was thrilled about you being a potential guest on the podcast, was just, the outside connection. I really believe in All Bodies Outside. Otherwise, I would not have started a podcast called that. And I think it's important on a lot of levels, physical and mental, a lot of levels in both those categories. And that's something that I see in you and with Barlow Herbal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how, well, I do know how people survive. I think people barely survive. They don't ever get outdoors. I think it's not really living. We need to be outside in the air. We need to look at the mountains. We need to lay in the grass and stare at the clouds and just daydream. We need to feel our heart racing as we're climbing a mountain or on a bike outside or doing a run. Like you said, you're a runner, and it just feeds your soul. I think that if you've not ever experienced that, if there's anybody listening to this and they have just never experienced the exhilaration of being in Mother Nature. I mean, I remember as a kid, we didn't spend hardly any time indoors, besides the fact that there's so many of us. And my mom was always like, go out and play. And I remember laying in the grass for hours and just looking at the blades of grass and watching a bug walk across the sidewalk and dragging a stick through the dirt, and just hours and hours and hours of being outside. I mean, that is where human beings are meant to be, besides the whole grounding aspect. You stand in the grass, you stand on the dirt, you think about how you feel when you stand in the ocean with your feet in the sand connected to the water, and you're grounding, you're electromagnetically grounding. And that's why we feel so good when that's one of the reasons. So yeah, to me, I would live out there. I would live outside.
Yeah. Well, Jane, you got me really excited. So on August 5th to August 12th, my wife and I are celebrating our first wedding anniversary by going backpacking in Yosemite together. And so it's going to be a rugged anniversary, but we wanted to be outside. We love backpacking together. We feel that we connect with each other the best that way, but we also do so much for ourselves out there that we bring back home afterwards. And it really pushes us along well. Additionally, we are, as I've mentioned, as you've mentioned, I'm a runner. I love doing that. It's one great way for me to connect outside. And my wife and I got up this morning about 5 a.m. We got out the door about 5:30, and we go run in a local park that's got a network of trails. And being out there that early, no one else is out there, and we can bring our dogs off leash. They can run around. And around, I think our sunrise right now is around 6:20, 6:25. And so this is out and kind of just like some very gentle rolling prairie of Kansas. And it's a very big horizon because there's nothing obstructing it, no beautiful mountains like Utah. And so you get to see this beautiful sunrise from way far out to the east. And oh man, it was a great way to start the day.
That sounds like pure heaven. Pure
Yeah.
heaven.
And I thought it in the moment. I was like, this is just phenomenal to be out there, and this is beautiful. I'm so grateful that I'm here.
Yeah. And I think if more people just took the time to get out and get comfortable, because I know we're so connected to our technology that for some people, they start to have anxiety if they're too far away from their technology, their phone. So I would suggest to people, leave your phone in your house or in your car and go out and like sit on a park bench to start and just breathe. Don't have anything that's distracting you. And I think you really have to get to a point where you can be with yourself or be with nature or be with your wife. I mean, that is like, there's a lot of people who get uncomfortable going out and just experiencing what you're experiencing because they're just used to the constant dopamine hit from their phone or their technology. So you have to really, but there's nothing like it. I mean, my favorite thing is to take my journal and go out in a quiet spot in my yard. And I do this almost every day. I don't have anything that's distracting me. And I have an open journal and I have some of my most creative, beautiful, flowing thoughts when I'm sitting in nature and I've got just a journal and a pen. And I get some of my best creative ideas and answers to relationship issues or business problems, or you can just get so much clarity when you go outside.
Yeah, and get outside and journaling. That's something that we are both a fan of too, and we both are bringing journals on our backpacking trip, and we
Right.
both do some free flowing thoughts, some sketches and whatnot. But I also wanted to underscore your advice that you gave earlier about for people that maybe don't have as big of a background of getting outdoors, getting into nature. I think that your recommendation was really spot on with starting with something that let's leave your phone behind, but go to somewhere that you're comfortable, you can get to, and build up incrementally from there. You don't need to suddenly be going outside for this this long duration, a place that you're not used to, but build up to it. Take maybe if it's baby steps to get to that point, but view it as digestible baby steps that are achievable. You can have success at them, and then just keep building from there. And I thought that was a great piece of advice that you gave.
Yeah, because I think people go, oh, I can't do that. I can't go out for a run like Brian, or I can't go hike up a mountain like you can. Well, don't do that then. Don't start that. Don't start that way. Yeah, small
Yeah.
steps and just go out and experience. Listen for the sounds. What do you hear? Do you hear a breeze in the trees? Do you hear a bird? Do you hear a cricket? I mean, the things that you're going to always miss if you don't are, and really pay attention. See how many things that you can hear. Do you hear a plane overhead or whatever? So yeah,
Yeah.
I think you just got to start small if you're not
Start
used to it.
small. Yeah, maybe bring a journal with you. Maybe try closing your eyes, controlling your breath. And like, I love having my eyes closed, taking a pause and then really intentionally listening to those sounds that you mentioned. That's something I love
Yeah,
doing too.
yeah. I think you must be my little brother.
I love being outside, and I'm excited for our vacation. It's we are going to so we're leaving in 2 Saturdays. We're going to get all packed up this weekend, which is a week in advance of we're leaving, but we're like, gosh, if we're going backpacking, we can't go to the store and buy something if we forgot it. So we better like make sure we got our stove and enough food and all the clothes, and don't forget the sleeping bag, and don't forget the tent. So it's we're almost there, and so it's we're both getting pretty giddy, and we last night fell asleep watching a YouTube video of some people backpacking Yosemite just because we're excited.
No, that's awesome. And don't forget your herbs too on your trip.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
In fact, I told you before we started recording this last time we talked, I told you that my father-in-law was the founder of an environmental group here in Utah called Save Our Canyons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when my husband was 16, he actually went and climbed to base camp in Mount Everest with his dad. And the stories and experiences, what you just described with how you guys are so excited and you're getting ready and all the, just the giddiness from watching different things and getting ready. It's like, even, you know, my husband is 65 now, and even now with utter clarity, he can describe the excitement of that trip from when he was
Right.
16 years old, and all of the, just the things that he got to experience with his dad. And they did a lot of other things too, but that was very pivotal. For it was just him and his dad. There was another group, there was other group of people, but in his family, it was just him and his dad. And it, you know, it was a life-changing event for him.
Yeah, they really do get stamped into your memory. And it's
Yeah.
yeah, going backpacking is something that we treasure a lot, and we try to make that big trip every summer to go backpacking. We intentionally try to plan out so that we're going around Yosemite National Park, and it's okay to jump in the lakes there. There's not a rule against that, so we kind of plan different lakes that we're going to jump into on a daily basis, and it's pretty much a jump in and jump out because it's cold water, but it feels so
Cold
good, and
plunge,
it's like, yeah,
cold plunge.
cold plunge, exactly. It's a cold plunge, and then there's a lot of granite rock to go lay out on afterwards. That's been the sun's been beating on it. So go do a cold plunge and then lay down on a warm granite rock. Oh, it's the
Oh,
best.
that sounds like pure heaven. What a great
Yeah.
first anniversary trip. That's so great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be fantastic. Well, Jane, this has been an awesome recording. Thank you so much for coming on to Old Bodies Outside. We have so much in common, and thanks again for sending me the goodie box there earlier in July. That was fantastic to receive, and that was a lot of fun. I look forward to starting up on your products. And thanks for all the information you provided today. It was great content.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I think, like I said, the world is shifting, and everyone that can jump in and participate and get outside, it will give you a lot of clarity in how to move forward with your life and your health.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna throw on the outro music, and we'll call it an episode.